Yeah, great to be with you this afternoon. It's Shay Corgarval on Radio London. And I've got a new feature for you. We do like to do this, but I have to say, I feel like this title is a work in progress. And I also believe our guest is going to come up with something a little bit better. But we've, at the moment, work in progress, we've called this Ready Tech Go. And the whole point of this for me is to discuss in depth the world of tech, the world of technology, social media. There is so much happening here in London, so much that we focus on a daily basis that I'm really keen to unpack with you. Sometimes it gets mixed up with the world of gadgets, and I think that's very separate. And I really do feel that our friend of the show, James Erskine, is the person to take the lead here on this discussion. He's the founder of the tech company Rocket. He's also an entrepreneur. Now, you can get more details on wearerocket.co.uk and also find him on X, formerly known as Twitter, James Erskine. Great to have you here, James. Ready
It's
Tech
great
Go.
to be here. Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, really well. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm
Thoughts
on good
on the
form.
title?
I'm happy with it. It says tech. It gives some enthusiasm, so I'm happy to roll with it.
Now, I remember you were actually the guest who first shared the tech news of this on BBC Radio London about when initially there were conversations of Elon Musk buying Twitter all that while ago.
I know, it's incredible.
And you constantly are tapped into just how vitally important tech news is in all of our lives. But some people might be thinking, I don't think it is that important. What would you say?
I think it affects everybody, and some of the stories this week show how it can affect how we live our lives.
Right.
Both for the positive and for the negative. And I think the key thing with tech news and social media is you stopped calling businesses social media businesses because every business is a social media business. Every business has to be innovating. Every business has to be coming up with technological advances. So I think actually it affects all our lives in various different ways, both positive and negative.
I think we need to clip that, Jamie, because I think that sums up exactly what we're doing with this feature. You are absolutely right, aren't you? To the point, I have to take this right back, as I always do, James, to my daughter. I remember when she started her school that she's now year one. She's in year one. And even the school, in the opening letter that we received as a welcome statement, guess what they had? The social media details. And I thought, blimey.
Yeah, completely. I was at my daughter's 11 plus meeting.
Yeah.
And one of the first things they told us was screen time is a real issue. Yeah. And so there's both the positive and the negative.
Yes.
And what's funny is all of the apps that my children do their homework on are online. So you can't win. It's affecting our lives, like I say, both for the good and for the bad. So
let's delve into some of the key aspects that you wanted to discuss for this month then. Some stories from the world of tech, of social media. Let's start off. An important one, as you've just mentioned, around your daughter and also this idea of how it affects our children's lives. Florida passed this sweeping bill to keep young people off social media.
Well, this could potentially be huge because, Shay, I feel like you and I have spoken about this quite a lot. And it's what do under 16s do on social media? There's the very kind of serious points of Brianna Guy's mother who called for a ban on social media. And I'm interested to know whether Londoners think a ban on social media would work. We've discussed before just how easy it is to sign up for a social media account if you are under 16, and on some of the apps you have to be 13 to get an account. But what's happened in Florida is Governor Ron DeSantis has said he would like to propose a complete ban on under 16s on social media, and he will fine the social media companies. In fact, Ron DeSantis said on Friday that he thought social media was a net negative for young people and that with parental supervision it could have beneficial effects, but he said it was a net negative. And that's really interesting to me because so much of our lives is spent on social media, whether you're doom scrolling, whether you're finding out things. It's really interesting to find out whether a ban would work.
Now, there's a lot to unpack, but you've just said a term some people may not know, which I think is very associated to the tech world, which is doom scrolling. What is that?
So that is where you're just sat there doing nothing but scrolling and refreshing a screen just to find out what's coming next. And I'm guilty of it. My social network of choice is X, formerly Twitter. I like it as a news feed. I like it for opinions. My beautiful wife will sit there going through Instagram. And there are much better things we could both be doing with our time. We could both be reading a paper. We could be reading a book. We could be actually concentrating on the TV show we're meant to be watching.
We've all been there.
But that dual screening of having two things going on at once is demonstrative in most people's lives. So is there a way to actually clamp down and look at a ban on social media? Could it ever be enforced, and could it ever materialise?
This is a wider conversation we've been having here, of course, in the UK as well. So I appreciate you talking about Florida, but we know as well that Brianna Ghey's mother has been calling for a social media ban, hasn't she?
Yes.
She in fact was also on BBC Sunday with Laura Kunsberg talking about this, where she said we'd like a law introduced so that there are mobile phones that are only suitable for under 16s.
Yeah.
Is that possibly a solution? What's your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting because what the challenges I have with my 11-year-old son now are around his use of apps and how he is on TikTok, even though he shouldn't be. And he will go through TikTok on a browser so he can view some of the videos. And the videos that he's watching, we have a fairly good idea of. But he's only ever one click away from a video that isn't appropriate, whether it have content of a sexual nature, content of a joke that he won't be able to understand, and he'll retell that joke in the playground without the right context around it. So we've had examples of that. There are phones that are the opposite to smartphones, where you can remove all of the apps. You can remove WhatsApp, you can remove TikTok, you can remove Instagram, and that would mean that you still have a phone, because again, my 11-year-old son makes his way on his own to school on the tube.
So you need to be able to communicate with him. You need to be able to call him at any given time.
We think so, Shay, but then of course people have done that in the past
we all did.
without phones. So it's a tough one to navigate, and of course everybody wants the most up-to-date phone. There was a fascinating piece in the Sunday Times this past weekend about what children are doing on their mobile phones and what screen time is made up of. Last night my two had an hour's of screen time, and both of them had resorted to just watching videos on YouTube Shorts. So you sort of lose the power of gaming if you're losing the games that you're actually meant to be doing. So it's really tough. But in answer to your question, could a under 16s phone be brought out that was popularised? Yes, I think so. I think the worst mistake that I made as a parent was probably going with a phone with all the apps too quickly.
Do you regret it, James?
I do, yeah. And I bet there are people listening right now that similarly regret it, because there are things like we bought, if you remember them, my daughter an iPod so that she could listen to audiobooks. And again, the worst thing about an iPod is it's connected to the internet, so you can access all the apps on the iPod. There are other devices that you don't need the apps that you can just use to listen without technology encroaching on their lives. So I do regret it.
Many tablets, and iPads, iPods, all of these kind of different various types of technologies that over the years have become that, to a certain degree, we've become reliant, haven't we? Texting 826 says, Shay, I'm just listening to James Erskine on BBC Radio London, and I do feel that more regulation is required to keep kids off social media. But I also agree with the net negative comment as well. So there are people who kind of get what you're saying, James.
So people do believe in what it sounds like a draconian measure, but in what Governor Ron DeSantis has said about it being a net negative, there are interesting points that have come from this ban.
If you're tuning in to Radio London, you'd like to weigh in on this, please do give me a call. 0800 731 2000 is the number. Just staying on the social media front, because I know we're also going to be talking a little bit later about cars. Always an interesting conversation. You wanted to discuss Instagram launching Flipside and facilities in stream orders. What's this all about then?
So this is quite geeky and this is quite good fun. There are two things that Instagram is looking at launching and is beta testing already.
Okay.
The first thing is Flipside. Now, what Flipside allows you to do is send an Instagram post or an Instagram reel to not all of your followers. So it means you can choose which ones specifically get to see the content that is coming out. So it allows users to create custom profile and share exclusive content with a smaller group of followers. And Meta's been increasing its reliance on Instagram's ad revenue to help turn around its declining revenue numbers. And they see this as a way to generate more engagement with those posts. So it's really interesting to me because the one thing I would say about Instagram is it's your perfect life.
True. It's what everyone always does. Nobody perfect pictures.
Exactly. Nobody puts the rainy day. Everybody puts on the sunset, the sunrise, the nicest meal that they're having, the camera eats first at a restaurant, all of that.
Yeah.
So how can Instagram become more real and more authentic? Well, perhaps one of the ways is sharing content with a smaller number of people.
Okay.
So you're not looking at painting a glossy life, you're looking at painting a real life. And I'd love to know if you or listeners are thinking, can you ever see Instagram being almost a proper social network, not one for showing off, but one for real life.
I love that title, Instagram, the one for showing off. You know, because it is a bit like that. You're absolutely right. For many of us, when we post and when you are even on. Because I know nowadays a lot of people don't use it, but Facebook, it's just showing the best bits, isn't it? It's like the highlights of the month or the highlights of the week.
Completely.
As opposed to the story in its full entirety.
The other thing that Instagram are launching, which is really interesting, is in-stream orders. Now, what that means is when you're looking at Instagram streaming content, Instagram Reels, you'll be able to purchase directly from those Reels. So it might be a dress that you like the look of.
Right.
A brand can put a purchase now over the top of that dress and drive instant purchase from their own store, their own online store. So what I'm wondering there is, where are people going to be using social media next? Do listeners want to shop on social media even more than they are already? Because the TikTok has the TikTok shop.
Yes.
It's interesting to see how the evolution of social media will end up making us more transactional when we're in a space where previously we were just enjoying the content.
I'm very struck by that because I remember a couple of years ago, my mate was telling me, I went to her new house and as soon as we walked in the hallway, James, there's this beautiful floor to ceiling mirror. And I said, where'd you get that from?
Yeah.
And straight away she said, do you know what? You won't believe it. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. And at this point, I hadn't even heard of it. You just thought of Facebook as where, you know, you connected with your old mates from uni or whatever. Yes. And here she was showing me, no, you can do a bit of shopping as well. It's brilliant. And that's really obviously grown. So you have now got these social media platforms where it's basically becoming transactional, like Instagram is looking to do.
Yes, completely. Facebook's a fascinating case because you're right. Everybody sees it as the place to connect and maybe look at family pictures and post holiday snaps and engage with old friends.
Yeah.
Facebook has a real job to do to find new ways to use it. One of the ways is Facebook Marketplace, also Facebook groups. I don't know whether you're on any Facebook groups, but what's interesting there is it's around niche communities of interest all around one particular topic. So these platforms have got to evolve and keep evolving and keep coming up with ways to entertain their audience. And Instagram feels like becoming more transactional could be one for them.
Yes, 0800 731 2000. Maybe that's an area you'd look at if you've got your own kind of online business, is to extend that out to somewhere like social media, which otherwise is quite separate, isn't it? It tends to be that you you have a website, you may post some photos on Instagram or wherever, and then people will try and find the website to buy.
Yes,
whereas
completely.
This is cutting out all of that, basically.
Yes, definitely.
And what's the final story that you wanted to discuss this afternoon, James?
You've got a choice. We can either look at some of the advances. Actually, let's go with this one. It's the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona at the moment.
Yes.
And the Mobile World Congress started off as all of the places for the latest mobile phone technology to be launched.
Okay.
But because of the way technology is going, it's more than just mobile. And what I wanted to focus on was the wearable tech. So there's a number of different advances now where you can wear technology and you will have a computer on you at all times. Samsung is launching a Samsung Ring, and what the Ring will be able to do is monitor your sleep. It will be able to.
You wear it on your finger.
You wear it on your finger like a ring.
Yeah.
You can monitor your sleep. You can monitor your activity, but you can even, if you're looking at women's health, monitor your fertility. It will look at the temperature throughout a monthly cycle, and it will tell you when you are most fertile during that month. So it's now
That's
again,
mind-blowing for some people.
Isn't it mind-blowing? So
Wow.
I wanted to know whether anybody would think that that's a positive,
Yes.
whether you want computers knowing that much about you.
Yeah.
And also, when this Samsung Ring starts working, what are the limits to it? I mean, can it give the wrong information? Can it give them... So I'm really interested in how wearable technology can affect what we're doing on a regular basis.
We kind of do it anyway, don't we? Because with the watches that we have on our wrist, it's constantly like, telling me how many steps I've done in the day, or will remind me to stand up when I have just been sat down on the sofa for the majority of the afternoon watching Frozen with Tyra. Do you know what I mean? Like we do have that tech, but it's constantly evolving, isn't it?
It's constantly evolving. So I will always go to my phone to look at my average steps every day with a view to getting over 10,000 because somebody once told me that was the right
thing to do.
That was the right amount of steps. So what I do is I make sure whenever I do pace around the kitchen, I've got my phone in my top pocket so it knows that I'm making those extra steps.
I'm doing the steps. Oh, I've done that too.
Exactly. and I think lots of people have. But I do think, again, where Apple are going in terms of their latest product launch, it's not for mainstream consumers, but it was like a pair of glasses that encompasses your whole world. And it's really interesting. It's another example of wearable technology where you can see multiple screens and real life, how technology is going to enhance everyday existences.
I have to say, I don't know if I sound like an old fart, but I just quite like being able to communicate with someone rather than doing everything via technology.
Yes.
And it to me, it sometimes feels like we're going so advanced into the future. I feel like I'm playing catch up a little bit.
Well, there's a combination of things in what you've said, Shay. One is, I think you're right. I think playing catch up is something. Where's the next piece of tech that is must have coming from, and what must we do with it? But the other thing is, I do think that you will see a reaction against technology in our day-to-day lives.
Okay.
I do think people are already talking about digital detoxes. So having the option to just turn off and
Switch
move away. And I also think that will happen more and more. I think the joy of going on a long plane flight for me is not necessarily travelling with children. It's the fact you don't get any messages.
True.
You can't go on social media.
Can't do emails.
It's a great way to switch off and do nothing. And in the truest sense of the word, it's your time. So, and I think there are more digital detox times in the countryside, times away from signal, that will really start to change society for the better.
Oh, James, I've thoroughly enjoyed this new feature, and I just know it's the beginning of so much more to come. We're calling it Ready, Tech, Go for now, but I feel like this is going to change. But thank you for indulging us and giving us the latest in tech news. People can find you on James Erskine on X, can't they?
That's right, yeah.
And that is spelt Erskine. As I mentioned earlier, You're the founder of the tech company Rocket, so people can go to wearerocket.co.uk. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you for joining me today, James.
Thank you so much, Shay.
Thank you. And if you'd like to share your thoughts on any of that tech news, imagine that, wearing a ring. It's going to tell you when is the right time of the month if you're looking to have babies. So much in the world of tech news, isn't there? 0800 731 2000.